China today has one of the fastest growing economies in the world. But with 1.3 billion people, it also has the largest population on Earth. Hundreds of millions of Chinese live far from the coastal regions generating this new wealth. Hunger, sickness, ignorance, and an early death are too often the fate of those left isolated and impoverished. The first of the UN's Millennium Development Goals to eradicate extreme hunger and poverty is designed to address their needs.
In
1978, the number of poor in China was 250 million. At the end of last year, it was 28.2 million. The percentage of people in poverty went from 30% to less than 3% of the rural population.
The Chinese government defines poverty as an individual surviving on less than 66 US cents per day. The World Bank defines absolute poverty as surviving on $1 US a day. So by its standards, there are many more Chinese living in poverty than the government acknowledges. But whichever measure is used, China's recent progress is remarkable.
When you look at the achievement of China in bringing the level of livelihood of 300 to 400 million people out of poverty to give them a better chance of life, you have to say that this is an accomplishment of historic proportions.
I think it is a story of two sides, and it is, of course, obviously, it is a good story. But behind the good news, there's a problem. And you have to look at that China is the fastest growing economy in the world, and then there are a lot of people become rich very fast. And that at the same time, the poor people are falling behind. And China has now become the country with the fastest growing inequality in the world.
In this program, Life looks at how China succeeded in freeing so many people from poverty, and whether it can now use the lessons learned to help poor communities throughout the rest of the country. In 1978, China introduced a bold new policy. Known as Reform the Economy and Open to the Outside World, it began a process that has transformed China and the lives of ordinary Chinese. One of the first and most important changes was called the Household Responsibility System. This ended centralized agricultural planning and returned land used for communal farms back to individual families. By freeing the productive capacity of millions, the policy aimed to become the single largest factor in helping China's rural poor escape from poverty. Nongqiu Xiaozu, a part of Xie village in China's southwest Guangxi Zhuang Autonomous Region, is pretty far off the beaten track. Cut off from markets and technology, the people here always lived below the international $1-a-day poverty line. At 88, Wei Yunxing is the oldest person in the village.
Our dream was to have enough to eat, enough to wear, to have electricity, a telephone, and a two-story house.
The Southwest Poverty Reduction Project, initiated by the Chinese government with support from the World Bank, has provided basic infrastructure development like roads and electricity, allowing new information technologies to link the people with the wider world. Innovative water management systems have freed the villagers from the daily grind of fetching water. Improved seed and animal stocks have increased income, and the project has provided better healthcare and education. The farmers of Nongzhou have never had it so good. For as long as anyone can remember, each family in Nongzhou collected firewood and brush from the hillsides to cook with. But as the population grew, they had to go further and further to find fuel, stripping the vegetation from the hillside. Wei Jinlong has seen his income quadruple over the past few years. No longer worried about immediate survival, he has begun to take a long-term view.
We are building biogas tanks to protect the environment and to have cleaner energy resources. Now almost all of the families rely on biogas. We know that we are protecting the environment and are saving energy.
The villagers are sparing 24 kilos of wood per day per household, or around 9,000 kilos per year per family. Scaling up policies like these bring huge improvements to the lives of millions of Chinese farmers, help save the countryside from devastation, and contribute to slowing climate change. But productivity is just one part of the equation. The farmers of Nongzhou must also get their produce to market. 11 kilometers away, Three Rocks, or Sanshi in Chinese, is the nearest market town. To link Nongzhou with Three Rocks, the authorities built a road in the late 1990s. By making it easier for people to get to town, the government hopes to stimulate the flow of products, information and ideas. Major policies like reform the economy and open to the outside world and the household responsibility system are aimed at giving China's rural farmers the freedom and incentive to improve their lot. Specific programs like the Southwest Poverty Alleviation Project aim to give them the means. China's farmers have done a lot, but there's still a long way to go. And where they are going is to work. Around 100 million Chinese from the countryside are now finding work in China's wealthier cities and sending the money back to their hometowns. The increasing trend towards Dagong, or labour mobility, has become a vital part in projects like the Southwest Poverty Alleviation Project. It facilitates the flow of labour to the cities and capital to rural areas. Policies like these are intended to create an institutional framework for poverty alleviation, though there's always a question as to whether such a framework can be implemented at the local level.
people think China is a central planned economy, but actually it's a very big country, and the central government do not always have very direct control of all the specific aspects of the local activities. And so how to coordinate between the central government and the local government. Also at the same time, how to coordinate between different departments of the government, and how to handle the different interest groups.
Getting this balance right can allow individual initiative and innovation to flourish. Nowhere else in China is this better illustrated than in Wenzhou, in China's coastal Zhejiang province, where 97% of the economy is privately held. Here, leading enterprises that help bridge the gap between agriculture and industry can qualify for special government subsidies if they process agricultural commodities, engage rural labour in industry, and enlarge markets for rural produce. Called longtou, or dragon heads, they are often run by entrepreneurs with roots in China's peasant villages. Su Zhongjie is a dragon head. He remembered the woven grass mats which the farmers used for drying their grain and slept on hot and humid summer nights. By adapting these into high-quality beach accessories for the international resort set, Mr. Su has created a business with sales last year of over $8 million.
We are using our quality to win over the market and grow. And the reaction of our clients and customers has told us that our product looks good and is reliable.
I think when China have these entrepreneurs and who become rich very quickly, it has its positive effect, and people they offer inspiration for the rest of the society, and to let them see that there is opportunity, real opportunity, to become rich by themselves. But at the same time, because there's no well-developed framework for income redistribution, and they contribute significantly to the inequality, income and social inequality in China. As a result, they contribute to the social instability.
But the straw mat business is also a structured poverty alleviation effort. The farmers produce the raw material during the winter in the same fields that grew rice in the more temperate seasons, and Mr. Su purchases partly fabricated products from these small producers, linking them with international markets. Dragon heads are leading the way, from mats to mushrooms. This local mushroom cooperative has become a shareholding enterprise linked with the Zhejiang Foodstuff Import and Export Corporation, opening vast export markets for this simple commodity. By commissioning the farmers to supply mushrooms, the project is both raising and guaranteeing farmers' incomes.
Just about everyone in our village raises mushrooms.
Last year I made more than 20,000.
It was closer to 30,000.
Well, 25,000.
One enterprise that's sharing its success with local communities is Meifu Roast Duck of Wenzhou. It contracts farmers to produce ducks and other rural produce, directly and indirectly employing thousands of Chinese farmers and helping to raise the standards of production and distribution of rural products.
Okay.
Su Miao's father sold sunflower seeds and peanuts in a remote mountain town. With more education and a modern business plan, Mr. Su is the chief executive of Da Hao Da, which distributes these simple commodities throughout China. This year, its turnover was more than $23 million. Inspired by the dragon heads, millions of Chinese are now dreaming of a better future.
I want to be a teacher when I grow up.
I want to be a doctor.
In an historic demographic shift, the majority of China's population will soon live in cities. But what if these cities begin to consume as much as those in industrialized countries? China's population is so large that with no curbs on migration, its urban infrastructure could easily be overwhelmed. Although there is much greater freedom now, to move to the city still requires a residence permit. To encourage a more orderly migration, the Chinese government has drawn up a plan for voluntary resettlement. Known as "come down from the mountain," it allows farmers who want to make the transition to move to development areas like Shenmen. The Shenmen development area, a sleepy sort of town halfway between the farm and factory, is one of 590 similar sites around Winzhou, which rural migrants can choose from. The Come Down from the Mountain policy aims to help those who can't survive on marginal land to move closer to an urban existence, taking substantial pressure off fragile land better suited to forests than farming. The development areas are just the first step on a long journey, because hundreds of millions of people are projected to come down from the mountain. The city of Winzhou attracts farmers with the promise of prosperity, though some, an often forgotten minority, don't get residence permits. Urban life is tantalizing, but to many seems unreachable. The farmers' answer was to create Longgang, the first city built by and for farmers. But China will have to build hundreds of new cities over the next 20 years to absorb rural labor migration.
These people move to urban areas. They do not enjoy residential, proper urban residence, and do not have work permit. And they do not enjoy many benefits that are available to urban residents. Working in urban area is not always a story of success. Quite often they live in very poor conditions and have no social protection.
Foreign direct investment, particularly the setting up of special economic zones, is one solution, offering opportunities for new rural migrants. One of the most rapidly growing areas is the ancient city of Suzhou. The special economic zones here provide more jobs and aspire to international standards of workmanship. Technology transfers like this, coupled with the income from export manufacture, aim to enable China's rapid movement from an agrarian to industrialized urban society, and have led to a burgeoning domestic market, one that will soon be the largest in the world. But for millions of Chinese, participating in this growing domestic market remains a distant dream.
Poor areas often have the worst natural conditions. In Chinese, we say that they are the hardest bones left. Such areas are behind in social development, and it's very hard to make improvements.
To tackle the really hard parts, China has decided to go west. China's Western development effort is a vast program designed to transfer technology and capital from the more developed regions to the interior. One area targeted is China's Lurs Plateau. The plateau, an area the size of France stretching over parts of 7 different provinces, was once a huge forest. Historic annals tell of rushing rivers and wild animals. Here, along the Yellow River, is the cradle of Chinese civilization. Guo Haiwang grew up in Gongyigai village in China's Inner Mongolian Autonomous Region and remembers a very different life.
Desert. Before, here was all sand. Right here where I live was sand. In 1978, we had environmental problems that seemed impossible to solve. We didn't have enough food. Our clothes weren't warm enough.
Loess is a powdery sedimentary soil, dangerously vulnerable to erosion. It's so fine that it is easily absorbed into water. Thousands of years of human impact and lack of conservation measures have removed the trees and grasses, with catastrophic results. Here, China has embarked on arguably the largest development project on Earth. The goal? To rehabilitate the ecosystem of the Loess Plateau. In Gongigai village, goats, and especially their valuable wool, are the main sources of income. But uncontrolled, goats and sheep are a major factor pushing the fragile land towards desertification. The Chinese government, with World Bank loans, has spent a decade and $150 million to begin the rehabilitation in 9 tributary watersheds of the Yellow River. Terracing vast tracts of land considered wasteland for generations is intended to open up new opportunities for Chinese farmers. And farmers who have the land use rights are more likely to maintain the terraces. Planting perennial crops like fruit trees and actively promoting grasses stops the constant uncovering of the fragile soil. Sustainable water management, as in this reservoir, stores water from seasonal rains, avoids depleting finite supplies like underground aquifers, and ensures that the water resources necessary will continue to be available as the land and the people develop. Keeping their goats in pens and feeding them with fodder stops the animals from eating the grasses down to the roots, protecting the fragile soil. Measures like these are transforming the landscape in the areas served by the project and helping the people free themselves from poverty.
It was really unimaginable. I didn't dare to dream about it. Before, my house was made of clay. Now I have a brick house. These 2 decades, we've seen an incredible change.
Qin Zhifu knows what it means to be an environmental refugee. His family came to Yaotou village in Shanxi 47 years ago, when he was a little boy seeking higher ground as they fled the Yellow River's flooding. Few people in the early days thought of the Loess Plateau as a land of opportunity, and it took a lot of courage even to begin to farm there.
Before the project was implemented, we only made around 500 yuan per person. Now, our productivity has been raised. We can make more than 1,000 yuan per mu. Every family has new houses, telephones, and biogas. The change is very big.
10 years after the first terraces were built, there is visible and measurable improvement. Warping dams, designed to fill up with silt, have made flat fields in the ravines. New warping dams higher up continue this till entire gullies are covered. History has repeatedly shown that human impact can destroy fragile ecosystems, in particular disrupting the hydrological cycle. Now China's Loess Plateau is providing valuable evidence that it may be possible to restore large-scale damaged ecosystems. For China, with 22% of the world's population and only 7% of the world's arable land, the implications for poverty reduction of providing more fertile land are enormous. Geographic barriers are coming down. And the Chinese are also trying to educate their way out of poverty. In Guangxi, they are still hitting the books at 10 o'clock at night. In Inner Mongolia, computer classes are opening the world to children in remote villages. And in Shanxi, the high school has proudly posted copies of the acceptance letters from universities to its last year's graduates. Though with jobs being cut back in old state-controlled industries, they may yet face unemployment.
Many young people graduated from the universities as well as high schools educations. They have no working experience, and when they get out of the school and they have to face up to unemployment straight away. According to World Bank statistics, and there is only 1% of urban population who are unemployed and was trapped in poverty. But it is already one of the fastest growing causes of poverty in China.
The Chinese have introduced a new concept, the socialist market economy, which they believe can provide a framework for eradicating poverty without relying on welfare and state subsidies.
China's poverty alleviation program is not a relief program. We do not just supply money. We focus on helping people to improve their capabilities to develop the areas by themselves, to improve their basic living and work conditions. That way they can walk out of poverty forever.
I think the Chinese have developed their own knowledge and experience from which we can all learn. I think now is the time to say to our Chinese friends, let's sit down together and compare Chinese experience with experience in other countries, with experience that the bank has had, and see if we can pull out of this collective experience lessons that can be used in addressing the question of scale.
The Chinese are continuing to scale up their efforts to end poverty, trying to turn the best local practices into national policies. But now they face a new problem. As in so many other countries, the gap between the rich and the poor is widening.
I think the key lesson is when you try to build up an economy which emphasizes on fast growing, and it is very important to deal with the people who are left behind and to make sure that the inequality is not growing so fast as to be out of control and cause social instability.
The big question now is, can China bridge the growing gap between those who have benefited from its amazing economic growth and those who have not?